why is the dream life less real?
Yeah.
There's really not a good reason.
But I guess like that's really refreshing though, because it's like that is real. I can enjoy it just as much, and I can ignore this.
Yeah. This bullshit where you can't fly or...
Oh my God, yes. In my dreams, I can almost fly. It's not quite yet flying, but like I can do this walking thing where I leap. Like it's like each step is kind of a leap, and I can go as far in the air as I want to. I can't like fly, like soar up in the air, but in the dream, it's weird that I'm like the only one that can do it. But I'll just be like dancing around a ballroom, just like barely touching the floor.
Like moon gravity?
Like moon gravity, kind of.
I've noticed it feels a lot like trying to run in a dream.
Mm-hmm.
They're very similar sensations.
Yeah.
Of like, why can't I? I understand, but I'm not, and it's, yeah.
Huh.
I think.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Have you, like, I think, is it called a lucid dream? Where, like, I can't ever remember being in a dream and knowing it was a dream. But waking life, there's a lot of conversations about that, where apparently a lot of people can figure out how to be like, I just test a light switch or have some trick, and then I know I'm in a dream, and then you can build that muscle for flying or doing whatever the fuck you want, which I've always wanted to happen but never has.
Almost. So I will be in the dream and be like, it's funny that this is happening in real life because this only ever happens in dreams. And I'm like, it hasn't quite dawned on me.
You're like almost at the edge of it.
But like I'm almost lucid. I'm just like, wow, neat. Finally, it's happening in real life.
That's kind of funny, because then like it's like the people writing your dreams are like, you're almost there.
The writing room.
It's almost like this is a dream. Yeah, the writer's room. I always refer to my life as having a writer's room.
That would be a good alternative to Inside Out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a bunch of writers.
Instead of the gods, it's the writers up there.
I don't know if I like them being gods.
No, they're not. They're not necessarily gods. They're just writers. But all writers will tell you they're a god.
That is true, but they're also all alcoholics because...
Yeah. But we don't have writers, How do y'all feel about that? Some people get...
You seem like you're trying to convince us. Like something.
I write all my jokes. I certainly don't.
We don't
have
that.
those
My
kind
kids.
of writers.
Yeah.
No, I don't have like a ghost writer for my jokes. No, I have ghostwritten other people's
write
jokes,
my own.
but yeah. You said you can barely write your own?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
why would I hire someone to do a job I can't even do?
That's usually why you hire.
When I said it, I heard it.
That's why you would.
But there's logic to this in this context in my brain. I insist.
Okay.
I have a really good bit I'm going to try tonight.
Oh, I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Hosting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Hell yeah.
It's very perfect for the odd.
Yeah. Just newness. Just starting the night with some newness.
It's just real.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I also loved your facial expression communicating that
Yeah.
sentence.
I'm like, not gonna lie. By the time you see this, maybe you will have seen that set and maybe it was great. But not to get ahead of myself, I'm really impressed with this.
Good.
I am.
You want to run through it with us, or you want to save it for the...
Honestly, since it's not, if you don't mind.
Let's shop it.
I was going to read it to you on the way home anyway,
Okay.
so why not do it here?
Totally.
I'm just going to read it because it's brain vomit.
I have to get a spotlight out of my car before you sit in the front seat.
I provide my own spotlight. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Diana Wortham thing?
Yeah.
I was like, we don't have spotlights on Wednesday, do we?
No, we could. If we had stage pin, I have one. Like I have a 6x9 in there.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Growing up, getting older, means one of two things. You either become wiser or you become mad at everything you don't understand. We're witnessing unprecedented stuff here now, people. Come on. Common sense is becoming so uncommon, I might start calling it rare coins. And since we can't spare any change, I guess we'll just stay the same. Otis Redding, what have we done? I don't know if he's dead, but looking upwards to say this just feels correct. Oh yeah, I have to remember to do that. You may have noticed in the last, I don't know, let's say decade, for the sake of not making it political, that words can mean whatever the speaker of them wants them to mean. Additionally, what's arguably more dangerous, we have people assigning definitions to the words being spoken to the people, spoken by the person who is not them. It's becoming impossible to know who is which part of whom's conversations, and if the two participants left with the same little doggy bag of information obtained during said interaction. It's not the fault of these dumb fucks, though. Let's not harbor resentment towards those who have had stupidness thrust upon them. That's a Wicked reference. Folks, the fault lies in the people making the words. Yes, I know the fact that it isn't mainstream media is shocking even to me, but the slippery slope has trickled down for centuries, only for us to wind up in this reality that is a treasure trove of timelines overlapping to such a degree that when it is experienced by an individual, it might be called schizophrenia. But if a population of people notice it, it's called the Mandela effect. All of this to say, the reason I know where to point this blame with such swift certainty is because of the word belfry. Do you know what belfry means?
Like, isn't it a place where bells are?
Yeah.
The church
It
bells.
is. It's a noun. Okay, I buy that.
Like the Hunchback place on top of the...
Yeah.
But it's the part of a bell tower or steeple in which bells are housed. I'm in recovery and I'm working on maintaining a drug-free lifestyle, and my dad is a diabetic, and he's trying to find sugar-free foods. We're all going to die, and I'm so worry-free.
All right.
I like how you're like, I don't write jokes, and then you're like, actually, here's a whole thing I've written.
Very written.
And you're like, got to remember to look up there. I'm like, seems like you're writing. Seems like
Thank you. I needed that.
Yeah.
You know, it'll punch a lot more when you have stage delivery as well.
Yeah. Like, as I was writing it, I was like hitting the beats even. And then, like, because I haven't reread it since I wrote it and edited it, I'm like, what are words? It's a run-on sentence. That's what I hate about reading
Oh, man.
out loud.
Yeah.
I used to be so slow at reading out loud, and like my reading comprehension skills, they thought that I was cheating on like my reading tests, because there's no way you read all that, but then you can't read out loud. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, it's just like not the same brain that's doing out loud reading and in my head reading. In my head reading, it's done. Out loud, you got to wait for your mouth to catch up.
Yeah,
and
there's the mouth bottleneck of like muscles and shit.
hate that.
What's interesting is, for me, like, I can read someone else's words the way I think they intended them to be said, and I can hit all the punctuation. When I'm reading my own shit out loud, I'm like, what did I mean?
Yeah,
like, I don't understand
That's
pauses.
relatable. Because if somebody else writes it, it's just like, this is the word. Just execute it. But if it's yours, then part of you's like, should it have been? Like, what did I... You know, there's a part of my brain that's always going to be trying to, like, edit it if it's mine.
And then I'm there left reeling, like, and wondering, do I underuse commas? What is a comma? I don't know.
I feel like commas are, like, letting people know I'm old in DMs now. Because I think punctuation's so gone, you know?
That's how I feel about emojis.
It's like, yeah, 2 spaces after a sentence, 1 after a comma. There's always rules that are just pounded into my brain, but I'm like,
Do you handwrite in cursive?
It's kind of a hybrid now. Yeah. It's like what it's become, but it's a lot of cursive-y. My kids call it cursive.
Sure.
But it's somewhere in between, you know.
Because they only know straight letters. I guess cursive is
I
gay
learned
letters.
cursive. Yeah. I always could write faster in cursive because, like, my print was so illegible that, like, some teachers would have me write in cursive because they couldn't read my print. I don't know what happened to me when I was learning print, but I was obviously in a better headspace in 3rd grade.
It's just like reading in your head.
Yeah.
It's like fluid.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this.
What?
Can you read your own cursive quickly?
Sometimes.
Interesting.
When I first started keeping a journal in high school, I would write in cursive because I thought it was more like poetic and pretty. I was like, oh, if it's a journal, I have to write in the script. Like, like I was an
What if
old
someone finds it
crone
later?
with parchment. What?
What if someone finds it later? I need them to know who I thought I was.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of me talking about God and boys, like,
Aren't they the same?
and
though?
being. That's what I thought for a long time, and that's apparently not
'Cause
healthy.
God is writers,
Yeah, that's not
not
true.
boys.
You shouldn't
It would
worship.
be devils and boys if you had to.
You shouldn't be
Generalize.
worshiping your boyfriend unless it's like for an intentional kink.
Yeah.
That would be like an on purpose. We decided to do this thing. Should not be a lifestyle.
Yeah. I don't want my kids to ever like worship some person they're with.
No.
Don't sit around waiting for them to call. I guess that's
Oh,
not
yeah.
a thing anymore since your phone goes with you.
Oh yeah, it's even worse because you always have the phone and you're like, oh, I know they didn't call.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I am definitely not ready for a relationship because the other day somebody didn't text me back like all afternoon, and it was only because I was thinking of them that way that it bothered me. I felt like my head was going to explode. I literally gave myself a migraine worrying about somebody that I'm not even dating texting me back. And I'm like, that is, I think it's going to be years before I'm ready.
Would you be interested in dating that person? Was it like kinda
Yeah,
in there?
it was
Okay,
like
so
I
this-
was
yeah.
interested, but that's why I freaked out. And that's why I know I am not mentally prepared for this. I have like I'm what they call codependent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What they call.
What experts and my therapists are calling extremely codependent. And you like to feed narcissists. And
Ooh.
not that everyone I've dated is a narcissist. I had a pretty good one the last person I dated. They were pretty awesome. But yeah, I tend to get validation from just making somebody happy with me, because I think it comes from the God thing of like, it's always so hard to know if God's happy with you. As a child growing up in the Christian church, so I wanted I need that affirmation.
Sounds like comedy to me too, right?
Oh yeah, it's so much easier to know when an audience likes you or
Yeah.
not.
That's why I love doing comedy. Is like, as an addict, I have instant gratification needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, it's perfect.
Yeah, comedy's, like a drug in some ways for me. I mean, I've been off alcohol for almost 3 years. I've never really dabbled in like real hard stuff, but comedy does kind of feel a bit like alcohol or something, where it's just like really intense.
Yes.
There's the big swings that I want, like the brutal bomb, the lows, and then the
Yeah.
hangovers, but then also the like a good set, just being like, yeah, like fucking on top of it.
Yeah, and there's like a sort of part of your brain you unlock on stage, at least for me, when I'm thinking of new tags or material as I'm telling the joke. It's like I have never been able to access that energy without an audience.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe in some woo-woo way, there's things that the audience is getting reminded of, and me being there in the room with them, I can pick up on what their thoughts are going to, and then I'm like, why do I want to relate like lasagna to Halloween? Well, somebody in the room thought about it, and but like I don't actually read minds. I just that's my theory of how you can only think of certain tags in a certain audience room.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool thought. Like, you're creating synapses amongst a group of people.
Exactly.
And like they're slowly being carved and each of you follows it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're releasing chemicals. There's a lot happening that can't be measured when you get a group together and you like get that rhythm going. And there's just, it is like synapses is kind of a cool way. It's almost like we're all one brain or something. Like,
Yes, I've thought about that a lot.
like I'm into like the Jungian, like the collective unconscious. So I think like live events with all the screens now, that's why people are so hungry for like live events,
Yeah.
is because there is something that you're not getting from the screen that you can't put your finger on, and it just feels good to like click into that group, the group think.
And that's why meetings are so helpful.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, the meetings sound awesome to me. Like I know a lot of people in recovery, and a lot of people say like, I don't know how you get your shit together without, like, how people are doing life without the meetings. And like, it does kind of sound like a place where you talk about real shit, you know,
Yeah.
which is what I'm into that.
There's just
So
so
it's
much
like-
love in all the rooms and like
Yeah.
openness. It's like really cool. Like there's no political affiliation. It's just
Yeah.
this is what we have in common, and this is how we can help each other. It's really sick.
It's
That's-
kind of like comedy where there's like a lack of prejudice. Well, people have their prejudices, but they don't let it keep them from talking to you. Where I don't find that in very many other spaces.
Well, that sounds like comedy to me too. I mean, it's the place, it's the community that I interact with. It's the least segregated in that way, where it's like, well, we all love comedy. We're all going to try to put on the best show we can. So it's if this group of people was together at like work or something, it might be more fractured. Or
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Absolutely.
like,
And I mean, even if we had to see each other more than just at mics, I think there would be more fracturing. But I think coming together for a creative process.
Thank God we like each other,
Channels
but we're
energy.
not close.
Yeah, earlier you were like, "What? How can we make comedy more like the recovery community?" And I was like, "Comedy houses?" And then I was like, "No, that would go so bad." Go
That's a
so
new
wrong.
MTV pitch, though.
That's definitely a great reality show. It'd be like the Hype House, only no one's quite as hot. And
No one's hot.
I like
No one's hot.
your rehab hot joke.
oh,
last
thank
one.
you.
Oh
I
my
should bring that
gosh.
back.
Yes.
I
It's
gotta
just a
read-
funny. It's
I gotta
just a
write
funny
that
two
down.
words to have. Like I think
Rehab
I'm
hot.
always thinking of like,
you just see that on somebody's list, like rehab hot. You're like, oh, I bet that's gonna be good. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna write that down before I forget, because
Well,
that
let's-
was one of those ones I thought of on stage.
Yeah.
Because I asked somebody from rehab to come, and they were like, "No." I was like, "Okay." Everybody thought it was so cool that I did stand-up comedy, and I was like, come to one of my shows. You'll see how not cool it is.
I just let them believe it and played into it. That I had the same thing, but I think I had a different response.
But I think they'd come to the show and they'd be like, "This is fucking cool." Like,
Yeah.
you might be like, "That was my best set" or whatever. But they would probably think it was very cool.
Yeah.
they're just excited to see people do things.
Yeah.
You know? Like, oh, you said you were going to do that and you did that. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and it is.
Yeah.
I mean, because how many people talk about doing shit all the time? Like,
I do a lot. Comedy's the only one I've done.
doesn't every single person that ever gives you a compliment or acknowledges you do comedy within a minute, they're like, "I've been thinking about doing comedy."
Absolutely.
Most of them fucking don't.
Or they say, "I love podcasts."
Yeah.
Which is such a...
Interesting connection.
Well, now they're like,
They're a
people
true
are
crime
like,
podcast. This might not have
Yeah,
anything
but
to do with
since
me.
COVID, people almost think of this as being like stand-up comedy, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like after COVID,
And
it became
wrong.
The podcast is
I think it's
yeah,
because
and wrong. I agree.
people see it. They see it both in their Instagram and TikTok reels.
Yeah.
TikTok reels is not a thing in their TikToks and Instagram reels.
It is now.
They're like on the same screen in the same unit of space in their real life.
Yeah.
They're consuming stand-up comedy bits and podcast bits.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like linked in their head now.
Sorry, that was me cracking the code. People want social interactions, but not to participate in them. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I want to watch you guys talk.
Yeah.
I don't want to be perceived.
No.
Yeah. Always joking about that.
I love listening to, like, I love listening to conversations and having them.
Yeah.
I guess most people don't do a podcast too, but like they complement stand up so well. Cause I think like, you were just like, oh, I got to write that down, but now it's on the podcast so you can remember. But then also some of the things that we talk about, maybe we don't have to be funny right now, but we still might get at some things that you might say on this. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to try to take that up. And like, that's started to happen more where, you stumble onto ideas on a podcast because there's not pressure to be funny. And then you go, oh, maybe I'll take that and make it a joke later.
Yeah.
You know what I
Wow,
mean?
that's so crazy. I wish you had told me earlier that there's no pressure to be funny because I've been trying so hard this entire
No, that's what's great.
You're just picturing what you say in the little the on-screen words that pop up. Like, is this going to be a funny tag?
Yeah.
Well, we talk for like over an hour, And if I do a reel, it's like 1 minute. So that's going to happen, you know.
Hell yeah.
But sometimes it's been kind of fun to do reels that are more like thoughtful and like vulnerable too. Like that's kind of, because we do stand up and it is obviously about the jokes. It's kind of been fun to let the podcast kind of get more into like those other places, you know.
For some reason, I just thought of my intrusive thought when you were saying that was like, the reel is just us facing the wall talking. Like having the same exact conversation, but we're standing up and facing the wall for no reason.
Yeah, it'll intrigue people. It'll be like, what happened throughout the podcast to make them stand up and turn around?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Right.
Oh, I gotta find that plot point. Yeah.
Option B, I don't like it as much. That's why it's B, was just Cloud and I standing here going, Ryan, where'd you go?
We can gaslight him and pretend he's not here.
Oh my God.
Like, we
people
can't
do
see
to
him
their
anymore.
dogs. Like they call their dog while they're next to them. Have you ever seen those
never
videos?
seen
Oh my
that.
God. It's the best real trend.
I hate that. Oh,
It's so funny. The dog's like,
I'm right here. Oh. That's
It's like
cute.
a person fucking with their dog, like
yeah.
like messing
they'll be
with their dog's
Lucky,
mind. Yeah.
Lucky. And this is Lucky. Like,
And they're like
I'm right here.
secretly filming it so we can all just laugh at Lucky, like,
Yeah.
oh, look at Lucky trying to get
So messed
love
up.
from me.
and they can never understand that it's the joke's on them.
Yeah.
Do dogs understand humor?
I hope so, but either way, they go to heaven.
Man, we dabbled in dogs and now we're back on cats, and it's just like, yes, cat all the way.
You're a cat daddy.
Cat dad.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you remember that song?
Cat daddy?
Yeah.
No.
It was like
That sounds
cat,
good. It's like Rehab
Dad-
Hot or something.
Cat
Absolutely.
daddy. You'll find it. I don't
Rehab
know. It's
Hot.
like
Cat daddy.
Rehab hot.
it was like there was, I think, a dance that went with it. Do the cat daddy? I don't remember. It was something. It was something that happened in
I'm
like the
inclined
2010s.
to say that I
2010.
would
Oh, wow.
decline.
Yeah.
It's like yesterday for me. 2010.
I thought that until I started listening to the new throwback station, the Throwbacks radio station, and they're including 2010s as throwbacks. So like early 2010s as throwbacks, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't realize this was
Like
like
Call Me Maybe. 13
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they only do hip hop and R&B throwbacks, so it's a lot better.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. They have not played any LMFAO so far.
Thank double God.
But there's a lot of like 90s and 2000s. I like it a lot.
That's cool.
But I love radio. I love listening to live radio. I almost always have radio on in the car
Yeah.
cuz for a while it was cuz like my CD player broke, but also I love the radio.
It's fun to be a part of things.
Yeah. Have you
I disagree.
It's a little bit. It's like it's like the comedy thing. The synapses firing.
Yeah.
I think the Super Bowl's the big one. I don't know what the Oscars it's when everyone's on one thing.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not in the same location, something's happening. Something's happening. Like that's the hurricanes. Like it's like anything that happens that makes everybody kind of get on the same thing, because we're more and more just like you're on your own tunnel of like the algo.
Right.
Whereas the radio is kind of like it like pulls you a little more back into like.
Yeah, and I kind of loved that about the radio during the aftermath of the hurricane, because there was like those radio stations that all pooled their DJs and were just like constantly broadcasting announcements and requests for help, and like people just grassroots networked saving each other through the radio. I thought that was so awesome.
It restored my faith in humanity. Like it was like I've never listened to Kiss Country in my life.
No.
I'm just like I found a radio. I was like, oh, this could be useful, and I found that station, and they were like, we're just gonna be here with you. We're gonna be the voice for you. People are calling in. I was like, this actually is like this election year has been so just like people are gonna murder each other any moment, and that the local radio
Restored
was like
hope.
I was like tearing up, like being all cheesy.
Yeah. Because
great.
it's people from all across, like, things that have tried to divide us coming together over being locals, over going through the same trauma.
Yeah.
And, like, you really realize that, no matter what the media wants me to believe about my neighbor, they're still my neighbor, and the media doesn't know either of us personally. Like, we have the real person relationship. even if we vote differently. I don't, you're always scared into thinking they're literally going to murder you if they vote differently. But like, it actually isn't like that. And maybe they would save your life still.
Yeah. Netflix is just like, it just is. My shows are like, your neighbors are going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like every show is like, as soon as the power goes out, your neighbors are going to. I'm like, I'm trying to raise these kids.
Sponsored by Nextdoor?
And then it does go out. Yeah. And then everyone's like, you need water? Can we help you out? And everyone's like coming around. Like, I mean,
the water's poison.
The water's poison. Yeah, they did kill me, and then they still took.
Wild. I mean, this is a dream.
But it's just as real as reality, as we've established.
I was volunteering at a place, and like we'd accept donations from people like with certain bumper stickers, or like people who are like literally the police, and they would bring donations to be able to give out to people. And I was like, wow, you're usually stealing this stuff from us.
That's true.
You're bringing the tarps now? That's cool.
That is cool.
It was very weird and surreal.
Like I think people do kind of want to be a hero. Like people, when people have the chance, like I hadn't seen that before. And my media is like, when people have the chance, they'll fuck you over, and sure that happens, but there is this element of like, people want to step up, and like, it makes people feel good to do something to help people.
Yeah.
That's really cool, because like, it was kind of nice that the last month of the election was kind of the hurricanes sort of, I enjoyed that it sort of muted the yelling about politics. Like, it wasn't as much of an issue here.
Yeah, and I got that
water.
from rehab too, so I got a nice, most of it didn't have to listen to the election cycle.
Yes.
When I went to rehab, Joe Biden was still running and nobody had shot at Trump.
Whoa.
I know, right?
And you get out, you're like, what did I miss? You're like, oh shit, you better sit down, because
So what happened since
Rip
July
Van
15th?
Winkle.
Yeah, that was funny. I was really glad I didn't have to watch the online news cycle for all those stories. That was all I wanted to say was the writers of Veep really nailed it. I had a feeling the Kamala thing would happen because of Veep. It's like, it's a little too on the nose, but I think the writers' room, they're gonna pull that shit.
You know what Veep is?
It's the
I love
Julia Louis-Dreyfus HBO sitcom.
Okay, yeah.
It's like The Office
Heard
or
about
Parks
that.
and Rec,
Yeah.
but for the vice president. And she's a female vice president. And at one point in the show, she runs for president because the president has to step down for health reasons.
Whoa, was it? Yeah.
Yeah,
very
it was
Simpsons.
done
Foreshadowing.
like 10 years before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. I always love, well, that brings it back to part of your joke that I wanted to talk about, like the Mandela effect kind of things of like.
I felt you react to that physically.
Yeah. Okay, good. I loved that part because, yeah, if you were the only one noticing these stuff, they would absolutely pathologize you.
Right.
But since everyone's noticing it, it's just a fringe theory that everyone's noticing.
I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I almost want to like slow that thought down, because you kind of said it and now you're kind of saying it again. What is it? What is the idea again? Like,
Do you know of the Mandela effect?
is Nelson Mandela?
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So there's this social phenomenon that has been going on since, I think the term was coined in like 2015 or 16 or something. It's barely a decade old. But it started with a group of people who distinctly remembered Nelson Mandela being dying in prison in the 80s. They
They're
remember
like, he never got out.
newspaper
I swear
headlines.
to God, he was dead.
He died in 2012, a free person.
Out of prison.
Yeah.
He was like the president or
And
something.
and everyone like did a bunch of Googling and went, no, there's no way. So like, it's like every once in a while, half of the population will remember something a certain way and the other half will remember it another way. Berenstain Bears.
Berenstain or Berenstein?
Berenstain.
I mean, I apparently say all words wrong. So.
They are not Jewish bears.
I always thought it was the Berenstein Bears with an EI or IE, whatever.
EI.
But it's AI. Berenstain Bears.
AI.
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
The helicopters are gonna get here any second.
Vote with your hands up.
Stumbled onto something.
Another one, the Fruit of the Loom logo never had a cornucopia.
Oh yeah.
And I definitely
always remember that
the
one.
cornucopia.
Yeah.
I think "Play It Again, Sam" was never said in Casablanca. It's
Oh,
one
yeah.
of those things where
Yeah.
it became the main memory
Yeah.
of what happened, even though it's
Sally
not in there.
Fields, you like me,
Yeah.
you really like me.
You really like me. That
She didn't say that.
I was just thinking of that example and I couldn't remember who said it. So thank you for.
So-
I brought
so-
it up in my mind. So.
Synapses.
The
Following yours.
Mandela effect is like when like something imagined takes hold of like it gets enough momentum to like it's true even though it didn't happen.
No, it's when a group of people distinctly remember something being slightly different than the way everyone else says it's always been. Here's a way that it makes more sense. Some people who believe in multiple timelines see it as a group of people making a timeline jump, and they came from a timeline where that is what happened, and they're just now on the one where it happened slightly different way. So like making a transfer at a subway station or something. Like I was on the L train, now I'm on the J train. Like I was on the Berenstain train, and now I'm on the one where it's Berenstain.
Right.
And apparently, if that happened, then all of us were at some point made the timeline jump to the one where the 2016 election happened. I always personalize it and say, like, what choices was I making around that time that may have been reflected in the whole within myself? Where was the sad election in my choices? And oh man, I'm aware of what my choices were that were bad in 2016.
I was really nervous for you, what you were going to say.
I'm not going to divulge it. Y'all aren't ready.
No, I thought you were just going to say, some of us are on the timeline where Hillary won.
Oh God.
And everything's better.
I saw a meme last night
something.
that said, where's the Bernie won in 2020 timeline? And I can't. It still hurts me to think about that one.
Yeah, Bernie had the fire. Bernie had the. I feel like Bernie. Like you do need to be an orator that can get people riled up. Like I'm sorry.
Yep.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you'll do the job of
You gotta
president
have
well. But you got to have the charisma.
the track
Trump,
record.
fits all of those boxes.
yeah,
that
whether you
just
like
listed.
Trump or not, like he's fucking.
Yeah.
He has an energy around him, and being
Leo
not Trump
Mars.
is not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Bernie was. I mean, the crowd's just the crackling
Oh,
electricity.
yeah.
I mean, he was.
I saw him
fucking
speak
electric.
at the salvage station, and I saw him inside and outside because there were so many people there. He had to do a stump speech outside in the parking lot, and he, with no mic or anything, just like stood out there on the same like dusty gravel parking lot as everyone else and gave his whole speech, like a 15 or 20 minutes of his speech to just everybody standing around him.
That is so
and
cool.
it was like, it was so inspiring. I got sunburned at that. I was really feeling the burn.
Worth it.
There we go.
Yeah, he another thing he
Yeah,
did
he's great.
that I think makes a huge difference. I mean, I'm really into podcasting, but Bernie went on the podcast and just sat and had 3-hour conversations.
Yeah.
And it's pretty old fashioned to think you can not do that, but I think that helped Trump a lot. That he went on the podcast and just talked for 3 hours and people get a sense. And it's like Kamala wasn't not willing to do that for whatever reason or couldn't schedule it. It's like Bernie did that.
I think
He'll
she
just sit down
tried a
and talk.
few, but it wasn't
So I mean,
relatable
but
enough.
If you can't do that, like in this day and age, that's
rough.
you got to. People want you to like see you just talk about shit and not have it be
Be
like,
a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get a sense of who you are. So
Yeah.
I felt like that was when I knew that it was maybe turning when I saw that one party going on all the podcasts that I see, and I'm like, man.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, where's Kamala? Like, why isn't she going on?
Yeah. I kind of always thought it was going to go this way because of the astrology of it. But that's because the astrology podcasts were like, they would just kind of say, we don't want to talk about what's happening in November, like skirt around it. We're like, we all know what's going to happen.
Right.
And I was like, wait, no, you should explain it for the rest of us who don't get it yet. what planets exactly? And, okay. Yeah.
If we destroy those planets before it happens, does it make a difference?
Yeah, makes it way worse. I like to think the planets do have an effect on us, but that's not a popular opinion among astrologers. The popular opinion is that it's more archetypal and that it's just kind of coincidental that this is timed to the motion of the planets. But me and my crazy science fringe theories, I do think that the gravitational waves are so minutely affected by the slightly different angles of the bodies pulling on things that we feel it in our brains first. Because a small ship will notice the waves going in or out before a big ship will. So I think the smallest ocean, which is inside our brain, is going to feel those tides a little more, which explains why, like, people go crazy around the full moon, that kind of thing.
I am inclined to agree with that because it's like, well, we're mostly water. Your brain is just neurons suspended in fat and water, and planets moving is going to push and pull them in some way while those synapses are happening and growing. Like a gravitational influx in one direction could affect the way they grow or how strong they are when they're growing. And then that makes you who you are because we are our thoughts.
Yeah.
But also, like, too, I'm pretty sure the first organ that evolved from, like, single-celled organisms on were eyes. And so light also is the stars and planets.
Yes.
So gravity and light.
And we look at them in visible light, but they're also doing so many other types of radiation at us.
That like we might be able to sense, but don't know it.
I learned last night that the moon is a huge source of gamma radiation because it reflects it from the Milky Way. When scientists look at the moon searching for a larger spectrum than just visible light, you can see like a projection of the light from the Milky Way galaxy as a stripe on the moon.
It's not just sun.
In gamma radiation.
That rocks and excites me deeply.
Right. It's so cool. Well, you should listen to Today's Weather Tonight. I'll share more stuff like that.
I don't know why, and forgive me, I've never watched that.
That's okay. I forgive you. Not many people do. It's turns out it's like a lot of my demographic seems to be women in their 20s to 40s with some sort of science degree and in recovery. And a little bit politically disillusioned. So it's kind of...
So copies
a little bit, yeah.
Within a 20-year bracket.
It's definitely... Well, we all have different disciplines. Like there's a psychologist who watches it.
Sure.
There's a biologist who watches it. There's several different things. That's what I like about having, instead of a podcast format, I do a live stream.
Yeah.
Okay.
a live streamed YouTube show every night for an hour ish.
Every night?
Yeah, it's Today's Weather Tonight.
I've never watched it, but I've definitely heard you talk about how your schedule is. Like,
yeah, and I see the chat coming in, so as I'm talking to them, like they can add things or ask questions, and they teach me stuff. Like my viewers teach me stuff all the time, and
that's so fun.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And also, I know where some of them live, so I'll be able to give personal forecasts. So,
I was
like Kaylee, you're gonna have to watch out. There's this bomb cyclone coming to Northern California. Like, I did get to tell somebody to evacuate for Hurricane Beryl. It's like, but I still only have like 5 people watching max, but it's like a conversation.
That's so cool.
I like doing small time. I mean, this podcast is a small time operation. I try to build things so I have fun. I grow. This is the biggest investment.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's like these are for me later on too. Like later in life, maybe I'll be some old man like lying there, and I can like listen to all these conversations. Or so the number of viewers. If you're just looking at that number, then you're probably just going to be miserable.
I do, and I am.
Yeah. And I'm doing a little bit of that more than I let on to, but trying to err on.
Yeah.
I was thinking of something with like the planets and the water and the, like, I can get down with some of that stuff. I've never really gotten into astrology, but we were talking about the synapses in the room, and the thing I keep coming back to is like, like if you smell somebody's breath or whatever, like they're physically, the molecules are like literally, no, your breath's fine. Okay. I use breath as an example because I heard I had bad breath last
poop
night.
is gross.
It's nicer than
to
saying
say
fart.
Like shit, fart is what would be
You're
like,
inhaling bits of fecal matter.
Yeah.
Fecal
you're on a
particulate.
date with someone you're very attracted to, and you get a whiff of their hair. How about that?
Yes. I love
And
that.
it's
Thank
going
you so much.
inside your body. So it's
Yeah.
like, if you're like the alien watching this from like outer space, and you're literally seeing like particles like breaking off and going inside. So there's like the air, there's the idea that we're like, the air is totally between us is false, I mean, there's literally like you can measure the molecules intermingling between us, and then you have thoughts and things like that happening. I think there's this whole realm of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of what you guys were saying, and I think comedy does kind of hit at that. Like when you can get everybody kind of like on, when the room's like really going together, it's just fun to feel like with the water of our bodies.
I love
and thoughts
the
just kind of
wavelength.
sloshing.
Yes.
Yeah, same wavelength. There's just some magic there that I don't think we'll ever. It's like you can measure things with science and you can prove things that are factually true or have theories, but there's also a lot of stuff that you can't prove that is true, or is just because you can't prove it doesn't mean it's not real.
Some things are improvable. Like you just can't prove it because the foundational. You would have to make some sort of assumption in order to know it one way or the other.
Sure.
Yeah.
There are some ideas that are so big that there's no way to be proven. You just take it as a given. And those are axioms, I think. I remember that.
And
right.
also not having a measurement of a certain data point, like not even knowing what to call a data is like a huge part of it, right? Like I don't even know what I'm looking for or how to find it.
Yeah.
So.
But that doesn't mean it's not affecting.
Doesn't mean I don't feel it, man.
Yeah.
I feel the wavelength.
And that's why I think that gravitational effects is the mechanism behind astrology having an effect, is because we're not measuring that finely. We're no, I mean, we probably could if we thought it was worth investing in.
The gravity, like the microgravity.
Like super, super small. Like, you know how we say gravity is 9.8 kilometers per second squared, or meters per second squared, not kilometers.
On Earth.
On Earth. Well, it's not that everywhere on Earth. It is slightly different.
Yeah.
Depending on your elevation, question mark?
Depending on your elevation, your latitude. There's a image you can look up that has the gravitational differences across the planet. And gravity really is slightly different at the equator than the poles, than the mid-latitudes, and not just like evenly, but there are gravity hot spots where something's just a little less heavy or a little more heavy, but it's like way down the decimal line from 9.8. So we don't think of it as being different, but it is technically. And I think that if we measured way, like 10 to the 36 amount of decimal points away, we would actually be finding slight variations of gravity on Earth depending on the movement of planets. But
and time is affected by gravity too. So it's like and again it's like micro different, but it's like, who's to say that's not affecting things? That time is like being bent in all these little ways.
I love it.
yeah, maybe there are places on Earth where it's a little easier to hop timelines.
Yeah,
because
that's
the
back to
gravity's
that.
slightly different.
Don't tell me that. I love the concept, but I hate it.
Why is that?
You don't want to live in a world where Hillary won. That's why, right?
Hillary Begley?
Never mind.
No, she's
She
a
would
winner. She's
mandate
a winner in my mind.
pantsuits. Hillary's always a winner in my mind.
You're not talking about Hillary the election, right?
Hillary Begley ran for
I'm messing
president.
with you, yeah.
But PD did beat Hillary. For the
Yes, I remember that. Well, that happened while
All
I
right,
was at
let's get
rehab
back to
too.
what
got
we
three
were
timelines going on,
actually
even just
talking
in this.
about. Like truly that. Thank you. That's hilarious.
Let's rein it in. Let's rein it in.
We were demonstrating.
Class, I said calm down. Order in the shed. What were we saying?
What was the one?
You were
all of the
saying you're
marbles, though.
unnerved about.
Oh, because it's just stressful to think about like the having an option.
Oh, right. Like
Like
you,
if I'm
you
just
could've-
tossed about,
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
do anything about that, and I have to accept that fate. If I can choose, That's almost akin to time travel and butterfly effect shit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want the choice. I have too many to make in life.
Right, the crushing weight of that. Like one of my kids is kind of going through that's like, well, if I pick this class, then the rest of my life will be determined by that. It's like you can just drive yourself crazy being like, every choice you make is a different timeline.
It is.
So you haven't had the talk with her that nothing matters yet? She's too young?
You got to wait for her to figure that out and then come like,
Sort of.
She'll come to you.
Daddy, is
Dad, I
God
realize-
dead?
I mean, I am sort of saying like,
Is God dead and we killed him?
It's like Preacher.
yeah, I mean, I'm still working on that one. Yeah. And that actually sparked something else that I was thinking of during the earlier shit. Where I like reading old books, and the old books are like, this is like the book written in the 19th century I'm reading, and it's like, science is leading people away from what's real. Like people are just like, it's exactly what we're doing now. It's like science and reason is getting people into narcissism, and just like, obviously science is amazing and math and like the technology is great.
And necessary.
But like we've maybe forgotten that everything's a trade-off.
Sure.
And I think some of the things that we're bouncing around, but there is some kind of cohesive theme going on.
I understand. Yeah.
And I like that.
If you want to get it back to science, that's kind of like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where you can, in chemistry, there's this concept that you can measure momentum or mass, but the more accurately you measure one, the less accurately you can measure the other. Is it momentum or mass? It's two variables, and it's like a sliding scale. You get either one, and you can perceive about half of either of them if you want to go in the middle. But it's kind of like, I think of that with science and religion. If you are more perceiving everything super scientifically, you're not leaving room to perceive the mystery of spirituality.
Right.
And
you're out of balance.
In some current iterations of modern spirituality, you're not perceiving the real found knowledge in the scientific process if you believe everything can only be justified by like divine inspiration.
Yep.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Going back to the variables thing, it's like one of them's being a brat when you're looking at the other one.
Yes, absolutely.
That's so funny.
That's
I
an
know.
interesting way of looking at it. It's
Yep.
like two siblings.
Like,
you're
why are you
gonna-
paying so much attention to her? Fine, I'm just going to give you the wrong answer.
Oh, mass just
Yep.
gets all the attention?
Yeah.
No one gives a shit about momentum?
I'm not going to tell you where I'm going or how
It's
fast I'm
velocity.
going there.
Yeah.
Velocity.
I think I said momentum, but I meant velocity, because momentum, you would have to know the mass.
Sure.
Something about that. I don't know.
It's a science
Everybody
podcast.
else.
That
knows.
is so funny.
If I'm on it, it's a science podcast now.
See, science can even be funny.
I believe
Or we're
that
geniuses.
I believe that science is the new religion. Not that it's taking place of religion, but we're in the creation stage of a new set of ways of perceiving the world.
I agree with that.
There's weird stuff too, though, because like I grew up Christian and I went to a cool Christian church. We weren't like shamed or like threatened with hell. It was pretty cool. It was like you can be gay or be Jewish or whatever. It was cool. But there's this like idea of like prayer and stuff that comes up now, and it's like, if you do just every morning, if you sit there and go like, I'm gonna be grateful for all these things, and then I'm gonna wish that my neighbors are well. Like, you are probably gonna have a better life if you do that every day. And there's science. I guess there is some science that says gratitude makes you happier, but it's like if you go all towards facts and figures and charts, you like some of those old customs are probably good. Like you don't have to pray, but like don't be like these idiots are praying. It's like it probably is working for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can call that mysticism or whatever, but it's like you go too far in the science direction, you might lose some of the things we have learned over thousands of years.
Yeah. And any scientist who says that, I don't believe atheist scientists. I don't believe that they're really using their scientific method to perceive the world, because there are so many things that are unknown and unknowable in science once you get to a certain point that it's fucking dumb to say that there's not mystery and something larger. Eventually, when you get into like space physics or like quantum physics, people people throw quantum around and don't know what they're talking about a lot in spirituality, but there really is a part of it that's very mysterious that should be inspiring some spiritual reflection in the scientists that study it. I think eventually we all converge to, like, you can study spiritual science, you can study modern physical science, you'll eventually converge upon some foundational truths, which is really cool. I had a roommate once who was electrical engineer, and she went and taught physics to monks in Tibet, and she learned a lot from them about, like, how long certain concepts have been around. And she's like, I thought these were all things that we'd learned since 1920. And turns out it was part of Buddhist philosophy the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, we're eventually getting around to proving that there are reasons that certain spiritual traditions have stuck around for so long, because it is a knowledge keeper of some sort.
And it's a very Western thing to be that self-centered anyway.
Absolutely.
It didn't exist until we were thinking about
Absolutely.
it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Really?
Give me a break.
You are not that important or cool. But
And
you know who was? Buddha.
that's my problem with the scientific revolution.
Sure.
Too Western centric.
I gotta say, though, I really appreciate people like Neil deGrasse Tyson who acknowledge there are things that we will never understand, kind of like what you
Yeah.
were saying. And he's very pro-God and pro-science. Like, he's
Yeah.
like, something got the ball rolling, and it's not our job to tell you who it was, because we don't freaking know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a time, I think it was like a few hundred years ago, they were like, all right, eventually we'll just know it all. Like, if we can kind of measure everything and get the Newtonian, like, math figured out. But now it's like, like chaos theory and stuff like that. It's like, there's just now, it's like one little thing affects, it ripples through everything. So we just can't know, which is way more comforting to me.
Me too.
Like, who wants to know everything? What
That's-
kind of asshole are you? You need to know. You think you're going to know everything?
Right. And I think that the scientific method, like, I would argue that the scientific method inherently instills humility.
Yeah.
You know it when you know it, if you know it, until you don't. Like,
you have to
right,
reevaluate
like,
your hypothesis once you have the data.
all of the time.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about science. It's always changing because we're always learning new things. And, like, my favorite thing in response to that is when people go, well, scientists said this 10 years ago. And it's like, so you don't know what science is?
So you don't know what science is.
That's fine. Just tell it. We'll help. We'll help you.
So,
It'll be okay.
That's a little bit my argument with the religion thing is people treat science as a dogma a lot when they don't understand that it's a process of evaluating knowledge.
Flat earthers and anti-vaxxers came to mind immediately.
Yeah, and there's
Well,
like I work
yeah.
with science people, and like one of my favorite science people I work with is very open-minded, and that's why I enjoy talking with him so much. And you know, he was telling me that like within science communities, the old people that get the power, like they don't want to encourage the new revolutionaries that are going to like shatter everything they've built their careers on. So science is like anything else where there's this, it could be corruption where you're like, the powerful ones who decide who gets seen are going to pick the people that keep their line of, you
it's
know?
like gatekeeping and bureaucratic. Such a shame that everything gets there.
Right? Yeah, I know. It's like people just tend to form at those structures usually.
Yeah.
When will we
Well, I'm
dismantle the
gonna
system?
blame capitalism for that. But,
Absolutely.
I think if we want to, that's a tangent. I'm not gonna go down.
I want you to.
I mean, it doesn't seem that far off from
Dare
where we
you.
already
If
are.
we were gonna, if we want to change these problems of people feeling insecure about their livelihood and ability to stay alive based on what theories are being presented out there, then we should not make their basis of staying alive depend on their professional status. Like, if a scientist could still be doing his work and have food and a place to live, he would probably be a lot more open to new ideas.
Yeah.
Or new research that challenges his theories. If there's maybe it would be ego and prestige threat, but like ego and prestige wouldn't
Status.
feel like matters of life and death if our life didn't depend on money to stay alive. Like, I think a lot of corruption comes down to people trying to meet their basic needs with something very far removed from what's actually a basic need.
Yeah.
And that's like that's stuff I've gleaned from anti-capitalist thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think capitalism is headed we're in the late stage we're in, or whatever you want to call it, is definitely headed towards. It's just like, all right, the rich are getting it's richer and the environment's fucked, and I mean, but it's like, man, when I really think about how we would peacefully transition to something that's not that, I mean, especially when you just like Bernie is the perfect example. You know, people are just like. So many people are like, if they get a whiff of like socialism, or you can even label somebody that way. They're like, kill them. You know, it's
no one wants to take their medicine.
Yeah, so I don't know how we're gonna get there. What could I mean? I don't want a revolution. I don't want my kids to get. I don't want my head cut off.
I think
it won't be peaceful.
I think we
that's
just.
I want peace.
I agree.
My theory.
I want the same.
My theory is that we just witnessed a little teeny part of how a peaceful transition of power could take place in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, because we like we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast, people came together from across all types of political ideologies to keep each other alive and keep our communities thriving. And often one of the only things that was underlying it was a little bit of distrust for the government. And it was distrust coming from very different angles.
Yeah.
But everybody just really didn't trust, I think after COVID, didn't trust that we were going to be able to wait for someone to come save us. So we pulled together and did it. I think that the way that capitalism and environmental degradation are eating themselves, we won't have to wait for a big R revolution. It's just slowly becoming. There's a process that we're already in that is the slow unfolding of a new world. And every time there's a new crisis, it's part of that little breakdown of society. But that's why we have to be ready with community and self-knowledge and integrity to grow what we know we want to grow in those cracks. And then we won't have to have that big fighty thing.
Yeah.
That was very well put.
Thanks.
Where we have weapons that we've like made from shit, and we're just like, yeah.
Though I do often fantasize about the weapons I would make at home.
Can you tell us about some of them?
You gotta.
Oh yeah. If my FBI agent is listening, no, I've tried to stop saying that delusion out loud, thinking that I'm important enough to have an agent assigned to me.
That is the thing that comes up on here too, is like, you know, the putting yourself out. I guess like it's a calculated, like I know that I'm getting something good out of this. Something bad could maybe happen later, but it hasn't yet. So it's like, you know, everything's a risk.
Cat's out of the bag for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about y'all. I'm pretty sure they know my whole deal.
Like, you're not
that was my thought in it. I was like, people are really going to know what I think if I do this. And I was like, oh, well. I did. I mean, and I probably let it rip a little too much earlier in the year, because before I got sober, I was not sober.
Emboldened?
the show was getting
often on my podcast. I was not
You were
sober.
having an individual Mandela
I was
effect.
drunk driving the internet.
There's like a season in there that's
So and there are also some things where I wasn't drunk, but I for some reason just had a lot of energy to do like a 3-hour podcast, you know. And maybe it wasn't the best ideas I was coming up with, but I certainly was saying them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to say all the things to find the good ones.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't recommend it, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
I recommend it. I think you should write it down or say it all. Like that's kind of what this is.
Throw the spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah. It's like,
I kind of
something will.
It's like music is like we get together. If we were in a band and we wanted to write songs, like the way that I would do it is we get together and we just jam and we make sounds and maybe record it and then go back and be like, oh, that's that. We kind of got something going there. Let's see if we can work on that.
Zoom in on it.
But you had to kind of barf it all out to, you know, if you're afraid to just go long and take risks and sound dumb, then you're not gonna get to the jewels. You got to go through the just blah.
That reminds me. Yesterday, I saw a beautiful reel of Cyndi Lauper saying,
I love Cyndi Lauper.
"You know, as an artist, you just need to dump out all of it, and not all of it's gonna be good. You just have to keep making what's in your heart, so that you can get to the beautiful stuff." And I was just like, yeah.
Love her.
Hell yeah,
She's amazing.
she's so unusual.
But that reminded me of that.
I love your Cyndi Lauper impression too.
Thank you.
That's
It wasn't
really
very good.
yeah, you should work it into some stage.
Yeah.
It's finally something that's not a cartoon or a puppet.
Yeah. I do like your puppet impressions though.
I realized Droopy Dog doesn't have to be Droopy Dog. Capote is more relevant than him to most people now because of Ryan Murphy. Ugh. But I didn't think about that. Like Droopy Dog with a cigarette is just Capote. So
I don't know why.
I'm writing a novel.
I don't know who Capote is. I know who
Truman
Capote?
Oh, okay, the author.
The writer
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
who was a fag
Yeah.
and had swans or something. I
So
don't know.
when you're doing that, are you doing? Because I know the movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Is
Yeah.
that kind of where the?
Yeah.
Because I guess I don't really know. Like I only think of like that actor playing him.
And then Ryan Murphy put out a series like Truman Capote and the Swan, his White Swans or something. The White Swans was the name. I don't know, something.
Yeah, I haven't watched
I didn't
that
watch
one.
it. I won't. I don't care. But
I did watch Hollywood, but
okay.
yeah.
I don't even know what
Or
that
is that what it was called? It was the one he did about like the golden age Hollywood and like secret gays.
That sounds like something.
Yeah, it had
That sounds exactly like something he would do.
it had Darren Criss in it.
Also that.
Oh, also Darren Criss. My favorite thing Darren Criss ever did was the assassination of Gianni Versace. That is an amazing.
People went nuts over that.
little
I didn't watch
series.
it.
Oh man, there's a great. They use
I think it's on my list.
Phil Collins song, or no, is it Phil Collins?
The
Who does
Tarzan?
Easy Lover? That's
Can you sing some of it?
Easy Lover. Just take your
Oh
heart
yeah.
and you
It's
Google.
80s, but I don't think it's. Who did you just say?
Not Phil Collins.
Who
It's
sings
I don't think
Easy
it's
Lover?
Phil.
Sledgehammer guy.
Easy love.
It's who sings Sledgehammer.
Actually, maybe it is Phil Collins.
Philip Bailey and Phil Collins.
Oh, it is Phil Collins.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, there's a really good scene in that one. Darren Criss does an amazing job. It's also kind of gory, so.
You guys believe it's 4:59?
I can because you've been
wrap
looking at your computer for a second.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I try to keep it.
tight.
Yeah. Well, I'm always afraid it's gonna just stop recording, which it
yeah.
never has. But that's my fear is that we're gonna do this and then I'm gonna be like, fuck.
Then you have to schedule a whole other conversation
Yeah.
with people you like.
Yeah.
What a shame.
Well, if we tried to do it again, it wouldn't be the same though. But we can
Yeah,
do it again.
but
But
it'd
it'll
still
be
be
different.
great.
Yeah.
It'll still just be us doing this.
Yeah. We got into it, didn't we?
But if this got lost, I would have been deeply upset.
Yeah, that's what I'm
because
saying.
we
Like-
sound really smart.
Great. This was fun.
All sciencey and shit. Thank you all for coming on.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having
Yeah,
us. This has been
appreciate it.
delightful.
Yeah.
Very cool shed.